Good evening and welcome to Inspire to Achieve Global TV. And thank you for joining me this evening here in the Executive Suite. And I'm your host, Roxanne St. Clair. So how are you today? How has your week been? Because you know what, on a Friday evening, I'd really like to just reconnect with you just to find out how your week's gone. Did it go to plan? Did you have any surprises? Or are there things that you've learned this week that you want to implement later on? Hi, Inspire to Achieve colleague. Who is it that's on with me at the moment? So let me know who's joined me. And just really touching base, because this is your space where you come in on a Friday evening to just release some of that pressure that you may have been enduring during the week, to actually reconnect with your heart space, your vision, your passion, so that you can then gather yourself over the weekend, get yourself back into gear so that you're motivated and recharged to go out there next week and have another awesome week. So hi Beata, thanks for joining. And today my broadcast is about team building. And it's no accident that I've chosen this subject today, because the group of us that formed the 12, most of the members were out today, and we had our team building day. We had a planning day today, and there's loads of things that come out. And when you're forming a team and working together, there are so many different things that need to be taken into consideration, because you've got so many different characters. You've got, people have different backgrounds, different experiences, and if you're bringing them together to try and make them work together, then there are things that need to be taken into consideration. Especially if these are people that haven't worked before. Good evening, Marcia. Thank you for joining. Especially if they haven't worked together before, will the characters connect? You'll probably have some people that are quiet. You'll have some that are a bit noisier. You'll have some that are real doers. So how do you get all of these different characters together to form as one unit in order to get the results that you want? And that's an important factor to consider when you're building a team. Sometimes teams are just thrown together and you have no choice as in who's part of that team. So you have to start to really identify who those people are and how can you get the best out of each person within that team. And in order to get the best out of each person, you have to start to understand their strengths, to really know, what their skill set is, where you can really utilize them in all of the tasks that are required of your team. So I'm just going to have a look now and see who's joining us. And if you're online, please like, share and comment, because by now, if you're a regular on the show, you know that this is an interactive show. It's not about me just talking. It's about us communicating with each other. You putting in your questions, your experiences, ideas, us having a conversation around it so that we can enhance each other. Because again, as I'm talking about team building tonight, we are a team. All of us on this broadcast together tonight are a team. And if we can add value to each other's lives, then we all grow. Because there's no point in me knowing everything and not sharing stuff that can help you, and vice versa. If you know something, there may be somebody else on the broadcast that can benefit from your knowledge, your experience. So we keep sharing and building each other. Then, it makes our life a lot easier, and it makes our journey that bit shorter, so that we can have a more varied journey and go along different routes and different avenues. And who knows, we may even be doing some of that together off of the broadcast. So, keep liking, sharing and commenting. Invite people in to watch the live broadcast if you know somebody that would benefit from being here, having this discussion with us on team building. So again, what is your experience of building a team? Do share, because I will be reading the comments throughout the broadcast. As I mentioned at the start, we were doing our team building and planning today. And as with a lot of things, we've got different personalities, we've got different characters, we've got different strengths. So these are all of the things that we have to work around. because there's no point in you having a particular strength that can benefit the team, but it's not being utilized, especially if it's a skill or a strength that's actually needed. So sometimes you have to speak up and share information around your skill set so that people can actually understand who you are on a more whole level, rather than just, say, for myself, with my background being in accounting and finance. So I'm not just an accountant. I'm not the person that just comes and sits down and looks at figures. There are other aspects to me. I'm a coach. I'm a consultant. I like to have fun. I like to communicate. I like to connect with people. I like to see a bigger vision. So these are all strengths that I bring on board when I'm part of a team. When I'm working with people, I'm not just there looking at figures. I'm there consulting. I'm there seeing the bigger picture. So these are some of the things that if you don't share that information, then how will the members of your team know that you can add value in such a way? Now, this, and again, with how this ties in is that the more you feel that you're an asset, the more you feel that you can be utilized, or even members of your team, the better the engagement of the people that you've got around. Because you must have seen it before. If somebody, or even experienced it yourself, if you're bored, you don't engage. So if you've got team members there that have skills that nobody knows about, that are not being utilized, just how engaged are they? How much value are they bringing to your team? How much value are you actually getting out of them? But then how are you encouraging them to become engaged? So this, this is why it's very important to actually start to understand your people, because when somebody gets engaged, they know that their skills are being utilized. Then they can start to take ownership of their tasks, even of elements of the organization. Now, I said to you before, I work with different people in different teams. And I've always found that what works best is that when people feel invested in whatever role or function they're playing, they do take ownership. And in taking ownership, what they then do, they're prepared to go, as when I was being interviewed for the Olympic volunteering, one of the questions was, going the extra mile. That was one of the key features of being a games maker. It was about going the extra mile. And I also interviewed people who wanted to become games makers. And one of the questions we would ask is, okay, can you give us an example of a time when you went the extra mile? And it was to see just how committed people are to a role, how invested they are, whether or not they take ownership of what they're doing. So even if they're not given everything, how do they go out of their way or go beyond the expectations to make sure that they deliver? And this is so important, I personally feel, in today's society, of people taking ownership of their role, but feeling a bigger part of the whole, whether it's a small team, whether it's the organization, whether it's a group somewhere. When people take that element of ownership, what they are then prepared to do and to ensure that the deliverables are met is well, it's second to none. Yeah, that's one way. It's second to none, because you yourself, now, think of a scenario. If you yourself feel that what you do is valued, that it's important, and you're committed to it, just how far are you prepared to go in order to make sure you deliver, to ensure that you deliver on time, to ensure that what you deliver is a quality product or report or service, because you actually, when you say ownership, it's a part of you that you're delivering. So if you're giving a bit of yourself, do you want that to be a shoddy reflection of you, or do you want it to be something that you can stand by and you feel proud of. This is the result, should I say, of when people actually feel valued and feel that they actually have a vested interest and they actually take ownership for what they're doing. Now, just looking at any comments here to see if anybody's sharing any experiences of where they've been in teams and where they felt that teams have worked well for them, and where they've been in teams and they felt that those teams haven't worked well. Now, if I've really worked in teams where I would want to give an example where I think it's a poor example. I know I've been in environments whereby people make promises and don't always deliver, but then there are other people in the group that will deliver and regardless of whatever else is going on, have that determination that targets are going to be met. So they're the ones that will go the extra mile. They're the ones that see an obstacle that will then push through and decide that, ignoring everything else, they're on a mission, we're going to get the result, and they will push through and force through to find a solution in order to make sure that the end result, or the desired result, is achieved. So, these are really important things to consider if you're building a team. Somebody can say to you that they've done A, B, C, and D, but then when you have that conversation with them, well, okay, how did it work? What was your contribution in the end results? What do you think you did well? What do you think you could have done better? What will you do differently in the future? Now, based on those responses that you get from that person, if you're really listening to what they're saying to you, you can gauge what they will be like when they're working with you in a team. Because if somebody's speaking to you from a place of things didn't work well, but because this person or they or whatever, there's always a situation or circumstance that caused the problem, but they were not able to find a solution. And they're not even looking at the aspect of what they could have done to help, then that should be ringing some alarm bells for you. Because how are their actions going to change when they're on your team? So that's just something to consider regarding when you're speaking to somebody and you want somebody that's going to be an integral part of your team and you want them to be able to deliver. What is it that they say and how are you listening? What's also important is the team hierarchy. Is it clear to people in terms of what the hierarchy is? Can people connect and relate to people that they're either reporting to or have reporting to them? What's the relationship side on that? And actually, the next I was going to talk about relationships, so it just ties hand in hand. Because if people are always trying to circumvent the hierarchy, for example, what is their rationale for doing that? Is it that they've got something to prove? Or is it just that they don't like rules? So because they don't like rules, they're going to try and get their own way. Doesn't matter what you do, whatever you put in. So is having that person there going to make your life easier or harder? Is having that person there going to benefit your team? Or at some stage, is it going to become a hindrance for your team? These are some of the things to look at in terms of your team dynamics. Now, let's have a look at some of your comments in here. Right, so what's this? Oh yes, the lip service is one of, okay. So, yes, the lip service is one of the worst things and can destroy any team. I hate fake promises. And it's true, because if you're relying on somebody's word, where somebody tells you something, but then there's nothing to back it up and they don't deliver on it, that means that it's not even just a loss of trust in terms of future promises, but it's wasted time, because there's that time where you've sat back and you've either not done anything or you've not got somebody else in place to perform a task that you felt that this person was going to do, and now you've lost that time. So how do you get that time back? how do you remedy the situation? Do you still keep that person there in that position? What decisions do you have to make? These are all things that, we often take for granted. But once somebody doesn't deliver here and you leave it, then you give them something else to do. They may or may not deliver on that. So you leave that. And then you get further down the road. Now, if there's a pattern that starts happening, one, they're seeing that, well, they don't have to be of their word, because integrity doesn't matter to you because they've got away with it before. So why should they even bother delivering? Why should they even bother making the effort? But two, what are you then putting out? Because you're then actually saying to that person that it's okay because you don't expect them to be of their word. So they can tell you anything and that's fine with you. So these are some of the things that need to be looked at. Okay, so then there's another comment here. You need to value any team member. Team equals more than one. And that is so true. Because as you know, if you listen to me enough, you know that my thing is about value. And I always say that everybody has value in them. Sometimes the value that they have isn't always the value that you brought them in for, but they have value in them. So it comes back to this thing about relationships. It comes back to this thing about getting to know the characters of the people that you have in your team. Because when you know that and you understand that, in particular, if you're the leader, when you start to know the strengths, the weaknesses, the character, and you have that relationship with people where they start seeing that you know who they are, you see them, and you show them that they're valued, then it's easier for people to come and deliver. It's easier for people to start to be of their word because they know that you value them. And okay, so another comment here. Gosh, it's hard hitting, but it is. You're dealing with people at the end of the day. And when you're dealing with people, you have to be prepared as the leader to take all of this on board. Sometimes you have to get outside of yourself, and your natural reactions have to be put aside in order for you to bring out the best of the people on your team. Now, I know myself as somebody that I don't want to go into details because, again, it's a small world. So I'll give you a synopsis, shall we say, that say you have a member of staff working for you and there's something in their background whereby I think maybe they've come from, say, what could have been a blame culture. So their way of dealing with things is if you speak to them and you say something that's contradictory to what they expect you to say, they think that you're blaming them or accusing them in some way. So their thing is always to prove that they did do something or prove that you've had something because they feel that they have to justify and they've got to protect themselves. So that's their natural way of being. So if that's their natural way of being, you as the leader or the chair or whatever you are, you have to see those signs and recognize it to see, well, okay, it's not about you. Their reaction is based on their beliefs and what's been going on for them. So when you can step outside of yourself to just look at the person to see the response, what they've done, you then devise ways to have a conversation with them at a level where they can understand where you're coming from, what you mean, so that your message gets through to them. Because otherwise, if you haven't taken that time, your message may not get through and it may be misconstrued and they still react and react and react. And you end up getting nowhere and you just build up and build up and build up this animosity. And I have seen that happen. So when that animosity's got to such a level, what then happens is that communication can't happen because the blinkers are on, the ears have gone deaf, because every time you try and speak or communicate with that person, they feel as though they've been attacked. So they feel as though they've been attacked. Their immediate thing is to defend themselves, or defend themselves, should I say. So if they're trying to defend themselves, whatever you say, you're coming at them, and they're defending themselves. So can you see now where they're not really going to hear what you're saying because they're busy protecting themselves. Whereas if at the early stage where you start to see a pattern, you can reframe, you can then address them in a different way or have that conversation with them to show them that you understand them, you get them, and you're there with them. Then you can open up the lines. And then at that stage, you can start to really have that channel of communication. You can really have that understanding for each other. So that is part of where you said, okay, this is getting deep. Yes, it does get deep when you're dealing with people. So let me see. Ooh, Richard is saying, I did a live on this yesterday. Interesting, Richard. When you say you did a live on this yesterday, was it to do with communicating with people effectively, or was it around exactly what's just been discussed? That's really interesting that we're on a similar wavelength here. So that's brilliant. And then we also had a little discussion. So yeah, I'm interested to know. So that is key. And what that did do, that actually touched on how do you deal with difficult people. And sometimes people may label people as difficult people. I don't always say that they're difficult people. It's an understanding thing. It's where people haven't really been understood, so they've been labeled. Now, in my early career, and I probably now as well, I find that somehow I managed to end up befriending a lot of the people that are labeled as difficult people. And it's because we have a conversation. If I meet you, I'm not going to be judging you on a label that somebody has given you. I want to know who you are. Who are you as a person? Because when I get to know you, the relationship and connection that I have with you is how I then deem who you are as a person. There's no point me coming to speak to you and be introduced to you, and then someone says, oh, don't bother with that one, she's difficult. Because that may be your relationship, that's your communication channels. But that doesn't mean that for me, you're a difficult person. Now, I've been in meetings where, people have challenged things. But again, it's that listening to what is it the person's actually saying? What is it they're trying to convey to you? What is it they're trying to tell you? Because in that nugget of resistance or that nugget of them not saying yes, yes, yes to whatever you're putting out there, there could be a learning for you yourself. So I think sometimes we're quick to label people and jump in and judge people rather than just take that step back and listen. Listening is one of the greatest skills you can have as a leader or a business owner, a manager, whatever executive position you're in. If you have good listening skills, people will often let you know what it is they need or they want from you. And that is so crucial in working with teams as well, because everybody wants to feel valuable. Everybody wants to feel that they matter. They may go around it in a different way, but everybody wants that. Everybody wants that element of, say, recognition, that element of feeling that, you're important. And we do not know what other baggage people are carrying with them. And let's face it, people come to work and they bring their baggage with them. So we don't always know that. So the only way you can really get to understand who you've got around you is to really listen to people, see where they're coming from, see where they're at. And it may be that you could be the person that opens up that door for that person to have a breakthrough and recognize where they may have been having challenges in many, many different environments and situations. Because I remember I went to an organization, and I won't mention the name, but if you've been there, you'll know what I mean. And they say that the way you do anything is how you do everything. So if a person is coming to your team or wherever, and they are creating scenarios, or there's conflict, or something's just not quite working through, or there's some kind of blockage there, it's probably happening with them in other areas of their life as well. And so they have that expectation, even if they're unconscious of it, they have that expectation where there's going to be some form of challenge, some form of disconnect, some form of disagreement, because that is what they know. That's their understanding. So it may be you being put in their path, should we say, to help them work through that, to help them clear that. But if you're not seeing yourself in a particular, or you've not done the work on yourself, you've not training yourself to constantly grow and evolve, how are you going to recognize how you could be a help to that person as opposed to actually making their situation worse, which in turn makes your situation worse because they're not going to be bringing as much value to you as they could do. So I'm just going to check where we are for time because I don't want to run over. Okay, so we're still fine for time. So let me look at a few messages. Okay, so there was a me too. So thank you for that. And we've got an exactly. So thank you for that. So let's see. So yeah, so comment and share. It'd be interesting to know where some of the things that we're discussing now, where you may have been faced with, a situation, whether it's a so-called difficult person, difficult situations, if you're looking to build a team, what sort of things are coming up for you? Where can we have a conversation, discussion around that to see, well, what how can I help you this evening? Or if you've got something you want to share with the readers, or readers, should I say viewers, to really help them get an understanding or breakthrough. Have you had a difficult situation that you've had to work through, but then it became your biggest success? It became your biggest win scenario because you took the time to work with a particular person. So this will be interesting to really look at, well, where have you had your breakthroughs? What have you had to deal with? And not realize till you've got through it, just what a great job you've done to actually get your results. Because these are some of the things that we need to look at when we're working with teams. Now, I am, what was that I wanted to share on that? Yeah, even in terms of, say, you in the family, your family is a team. How do you utilize the strengths within your family and with your family members? Because you've all got your different personalities, you've all got your different characters, you've got your different strengths, you've got your weaknesses. Not to mention that family link where there's always a little something, because our expectations of people within our family is often higher than our expectations of anybody else. So we just have this natural expectation, which could be right, may not be. So how do you then ensure that you utilize the skills and strengths of the people in your family to create a strong team around you? How do you let people in your family know that you recognize their strengths and you see them for who they are? Because I know as a mother, for example, it could be very easy for me just to have expectations of my children without really taking into consideration, well, who are they really? And is this right for them? And I remember when they were younger, actually saying to people, other parents at the school, the first responsibility that you have as a parent is to know your child. Because when you know your child, if anybody comes to say anything to you, if the person they're describing is not the child that you know, then you automatically know, well, hold on a minute, there may be an issue here. Wherever it's the environment's wrong for your child, and therefore you need to work around that to see why they're acting differently, say at school, to how they act at home. Or does this person that's speaking to you really know your child? And I used to go to parents' evenings and just listen to what the teachers were saying to me. And then when they finished speaking, if the person they described is the child that I know, then we can have a very intelligent conversation. But if the person they were describing to me wasn't my child, then the conversation will be totally different. And thankfully, I think in the years we were going, the conversations were always productive conversations, because they would describe my child to the extent that they'd have me laughing because of when they would actually pointed out some of their little antics and their ways. And I remember with my youngest, I think he was in reception, And I remember his teacher saying to me, oh, yes, he's a bit of a perfectionist. And if it's not quite how he wants to have it, he'll have his little moment. So we have to let him have his moment, get over himself, and then, right, okay, knuckle down now and do what you have to do. And then he'll just carry on with his work. And I was just sat in that chair laughing because I thought, yeah, that's him. And even to this day, he's still a bit of a perfectionist, but he's harder on himself than anybody could be on him. And sometimes doesn't even see his own value and his own, some of his best qualities. So again, it's really knowing your people, knowing your team. As I said, my team here, I know who they are. And there are things with them that I love and I admire. And there are aspects of them I think, well, okay, it's not how I would do things, but that's who they are. So let them have themselves and be who they are. Because as long as they feel good about who they are, then they will learn and grow and evolve. And so it's the same with any team. Recognizing, knowing who people are, and the bits that you need and require are the bits that you help to grow and evolve. And if you can help on that personal development level of your team, so always looking to encourage your team members to grow within themselves also, because if your team's growing and you give them that space to grow, that means that you automatically have to be growing as well. Because there's no point in you having this great team and all these people that are high flyers and you're just sitting back, because that can't work. There will come a stage where you will no longer fit to actually be leading that team. So if you want to be progressive and you want your team to be progressive, you have to be prepared to do the work on yourself as much as you want them to do the work on themselves. So we are coming up to time. So what I'd really like to do now is just do a quick recap, see what I've covered, and then bid you adieu for a good weekend. So tonight we were talking about team building. And I said the first thing to really get to know and understand as that team leader are the characters of the people that you're working with, to see how they fit in, how they interact with each other. So it's almost as though you're fitting that jigsaw puzzle together with the different characters. And also looking at people's strengths. What are the strengths of the people that you have on your team? What can be utilized best so that they can flourish and shine, which then enhances their engagement? And so by enhancing their engagement, it then encourages them to take ownership of their roles, of their tasks, of the environment that they're in. Because when they can do that and they can fulfill their tasks and understand their deliverables, and they work within those and the deliverables are met, then you know that you're getting results and the team is working as it's supposed to work. We covered hierarchy. Are people clear about the hierarchy of the team? Are people able to work within that hierarchy? Are the relationships working and forming in such a way that this team can flourish and the team can move as one? Because without having that and without having good and clear communication, you're going to have some stumbling blocks along the way. So what are you doing to ensure that things are flowing, things are working? And then if you have a scenario where you have so-called difficult people, how are you listening and engaging with said difficult people to really ensure that they feel that they're being listened to, they feel that they've been understood, and you can resolve any areas of difficulty so that you can all benefit and all progress. And it may just be that maybe that difficult person's in the wrong environment. So be it. But it's being aware of that and being open to looking at what needs to be looked at and taking an appropriate action to deal with it that will help your team, will keep that team growing and gelling and make them stronger so that you can then get your results and you can all grow and move forward together. So I'm going to wrap up on that. So it's been great being with you this evening. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for liking. Thank you for your comments and for sharing. And what I will say, encourage people to come and join us in the Executive Suite, because this is where we come, we connect, we help each other, we grow together. And without us working together, growing together, having our dialogue and conversation, it'd just be me sitting here talking. But I think, it's about communication. It's about how we help and we grow together. So thank you for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. And whatever you do, I hope that you actually recharge those batteries so that come next week, you hit the ground running. Whatever tasks you set out for yourself for next week, you can accomplish them with ease and just continue to be awesome, to grow and be enriched. Remember now, we're in the last quarter of 2018. How are you going to win this game in 2018? So on that note, have a fabulous weekend. Thank you for being here. And I will see you again on Monday evening at 7 p.m. And we will just have an awesome time. So take care and bye for now.